I died at 31, on what should have been the happiest day of my life. Not my wedding day. I never got one of those. I died on the day my boyfriend of 8 years, Lucas Matthews, finally proposed to his first love, Sophia Chun, in the same restaurant where he'd once told me we'd get married someday. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I was supposed to be at home, waiting for him to return from what he'd called an important business dinner. But my coworker had seen him there, seen him get down on one knee, seen Sophia's tearful yes, and she'd called me. I'd driven there in shock, watched through the window as they kissed, as other diners applauded, as Lucas looked happier than I'd ever seen him in our entire relationship. Then I'd walked into traffic without looking. My name is Emma Lynn, and I gave Lucas 8 years of my life while he spent every single one of them comparing me to the woman who got away. Every argument ended with him saying I wasn't understanding enough like Sophia would have been. Every disappointment was because I wasn't supportive enough, not patient enough, not perfect enough, not Sophia. When she moved back to our city after her engagement to someone else fell apart, Lucas told me he needed time to help her through a difficult period as a friend. What he actually needed was permission to have everything he'd always wanted. Me as his safety net and her as his prize. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in a morgue. I was 23, sitting in my childhood bedroom, looking at a text from Lucas asking if I wanted to meet his parents this weekend. This was the beginning. The moment where I'd said yes, where I'd fallen completely for his charm and his attention, and his promises of forever. The moment before I knew that Sophia existed, that she'd always existed, that I would spend 8 years being the consolation prize while he pined for someone else. Not this time. I stared at the text for a long moment, then typed, "I don't think this is going to work out. I'm sorry." His response came immediately. "What? Emma, where is this coming from? I thought we were great together." "We want different things. I can tell. It's better to end it now. Can we at least talk about this in person? Please." In my previous life, that please would have broken me. I would have agreed to meet, let him talk me into staying, convince myself I was overreacting. This time I knew better. There's nothing to talk about. I wish you the best. I blocked his number before he could respond. The next few days felt surreal. In my previous timeline, I'd been planning outfit for meeting his parents, nervous and excited about this milestone in our relationship. Now I was just free. My roommate Claire found me staring at my phone on the third day. "You okay? You've been weird since you broke up with Lucas." "How do you know about that?" "He called me. Said you blocked him and he's worried about you. Wanted to know if something happened, if someone hurt you." Claire studied my face. He seemed genuinely concerned. "Did he mention Sophia?" "Ooh, never mind." I set my phone down. "He's probably already over it." "I don't think so. He sent flowers to the apartment. They're on the porch. I didn't bring them in because I wasn't sure if you'd want them." I found the flowers, 24 roses with a card. "Please talk to me. I don't understand what happened. I thought we had something special." I threw them in the dumpster. Over the next month, Lucas tried everything. Texts from different numbers. Emails. Messages through mutual friends. He showed up at my workplace once, looking genuinely devastated, asking what he'd done wrong. "You didn't do anything wrong." I told him in the lobby while security hovered nearby. "We're just not compatible." "How can you say that? We were perfect together. Everyone said so." "Everyone was wrong." "Emma, please. Just give me a chance to fix whatever I broke. I can't lose you." The desperation in his voice would have moved me once. Now I just saw it for what it was. Not love, but fear of losing his backup plan before he'd secured his first choice. "You don't love me, Lucas. You love the idea of not being alone. There's a difference." "That's not true." "It is true. And someday you'll meet someone who makes you feel the way you're supposed to feel. And you'll understand why I'm doing this." I turned to leave, then stopped. "I genuinely hope you find happiness. But you won't find it with me." I walked away, and this time he didn't follow. 6 months passed. I threw myself into my graphic design career, took on bigger projects, started building a portfolio that showcased my actual abilities instead of the safe, commercial work I'd been doing. I traveled to conferences Lucas had always discouraged me from attending. I reconnected with friends I drifted away from while prioritizing his schedule. For the first time in either timeline, I was discovering who I was when I wasn't trying to be enough for someone who would never think I was. Then I met James Park. It wasn't romantic at first. He was the CEO of a startup that hired my firm for a rebrand, and I was assigned as lead designer. James was intense, focused, with impossibly high standards that pushed me to do my best work. "This is good," he said during our third presentation, studying the mock-ups, "but it's not great yet. You're playing it safe." "Safe sells," I replied. "Safe is forgettable. I didn't hire you to be forgettable." He looked at me directly. "I've seen your personal portfolio. The experimental stuff you do for yourself. That's what I want, the version of you that takes risks." Something about his challenge sparked something in me. I went back, scrapped the safe designs, and created something bold and unexpected. When I presented the new direction, James smiled for the first time since I'd met him. "There it is. That's the work I was waiting for." The project was a massive success. The startup's rebrand generated significant buzz, and my firm promoted me to senior designer. James sent a bottle of expensive champagne to celebrate, along with a note. "You were right that safe sells. But great sells better. Thank you for taking the risk." 3 months later, James called me directly. "I have a proposition for you. I'm starting a new venture, and I need a creative director. Someone who can build a brand from the ground up. Someone who isn't afraid to push boundaries." He paused. "I want you. I'm flattered, but I have a good position here. I'm offering you equity. Not just a salary, but actual ownership in something that could be significant. And full creative control." I thought about my current job, which was stable and comfortable. Then I thought about the 8 years I'd spent in my previous life playing it safe, choosing security over growth, staying in a relationship that was slowly suffocating me because leaving felt too risky. "I'll do it," I said. Working with James was intense. He demanded excellence, challenged every decision, and pushed me beyond what I thought I was capable of. But he also trusted my instincts, valued my input, and treated me as an equal partner rather than an employee. "You're different lately," my friend Maya observed over dinner 6 months into the new job. "More confident. More present." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I'm finally living my actual life instead of a preliminary sketch of what my life should be." "Is it the job or is it James?" I looked at her sharply. "What about James?" "Come on, Emma. The way he looks at you isn't exactly professional. And the way you light up when you talk about work." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm just saying, there's something there. He's my business partner. It would be complicated. Everything worthwhile is complicated." I thought about that conversation for days. James was brilliant and challenging and frustrating and inspiring. Working with him felt like finally finding someone who spoke my language, who understood what I was trying to create even when I couldn't articulate it myself. But I'd just escaped from 8 years of emotional imprisonment. The last thing I needed was to fall for someone new, someone who might have his own Sophia waiting in the wings. Then James asked me to dinner. "Not a business dinner," he clarified when I started to pull out my laptop. "An actual dinner. With you. If you're interested." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, of hidden agendas, of all the red flags I'd missed with Lucas. "Why?" I asked. "Because I enjoy your company. Because you're brilliant and funny and you challenge me in ways no one else does. Because I've been wanting to ask you out for months, but I didn't want to make things weird if you weren't interested." He smiled slightly. "Is that enough of a reason? What if it doesn't work out? We still have to work together. Then we're adults who will handle it professionally." "But Emma, I don't want to not try something that could be amazing because I'm afraid of what happens if it's not." We had dinner, then coffee, then a walk through the city that lasted until 3 in the morning, talking about everything and nothing. James was nothing like Lucas. He asked about my dreams and actually listened to the answers. He encouraged my ambitions instead of seeing them as competition. He valued my independence instead of trying to make me dependent. Most importantly, when I talked, I never got the sense he was comparing me to someone else. finding me wanting, wishing I was different. 3 months into dating, James met my friends. Maya pulled me aside in the kitchen during dinner. Okay, I take back every cynical thing I've ever said about relationships. The way he looks at you is disgusting in the best possible way. He's pretty great, I admitted. Pretty great? Emma, the man just spent 20 minutes asking Claire about her PhD research, because he genuinely wanted to understand her work. He's not just tolerating your friends, he's actually interested in them as people. I watched James through the doorway, laughing at something Claire was saying, completely engaged in the conversation. I'm scared, I said quietly. Of what? Of this being too good. Of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Of finding out he has some ex he's still in love with, some reason why I'm not actually enough. Maya turned me to face her. Emma, whatever that asshole Lucas did to you, James is not him. Don't punish a good man for another man's crimes. That night, after everyone left, James helped me clean up. Your friends are great, he said, drying dishes while I washed. They liked you too. Good. I was nervous. I looked at him in surprise. You were nervous? You're the most confident person I know. About work, maybe. But about meeting the people who matter to you? Terrified. He set down the dish towel. Emma, I need to tell you something. My heart sank. Here it comes. The reveal. The catch. The reason this was too good to be true. I'm falling in love with you, James said. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm already there. And I know we said we'd take things slow, but I don't want you to have any doubts about how I feel or what I want. What do you want? You. This. A future where we build something together, not just the business but an actual life. He took my hand. I know you're cautious and I understand why. I'm not asking you to say it back or make any promises. I just needed you to know. I stood there, dish soap dripping onto the floor, looking at this man who saw me clearly and wanted me anyway. Not as a consolation prize. Not as a placeholder. Just as myself. I'm falling in love with you too, I said. It terrifies me, but I am. Why does it terrify you? Because last time I loved someone, he spent 8 years wishing I was someone else. James's expression shifted to something fierce. I don't know who this guy was, but he was an idiot. And Emma, I need you to hear this. I am not wishing you were anyone else. I am grateful every single day that you are exactly who you are. I kissed him then, and it felt like coming home. 1 year after I'd walked away from Lucas, James and I were at a work event when I saw him. Lucas looked older, tired, with a hardness around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He was alone, scanning the crowd, and when his eyes landed on me, his whole face changed. He started walking toward me. James, sensing my tension, moved closer. You okay? He asked quietly. That's Lucas. James's hand found mine, steady and grounding. Do you want to leave? No. I'm fine. Lucas reached us, his eyes moving between me and James with barely concealed emotion. Emma, I've been trying to reach you for over a year. I know. I didn't want to be reached. I just need 5 minutes. Please. I need to talk to you about. Lucas, this is James Park. My boyfriend and business partner. I kept my voice neutral. James, this is Lucas Matthews. We dated briefly years ago. 8 years isn't brief, Lucas said, his voice tight. And Emma, I need to tell you something. About Sophia. I don't need to hear about Sophia, I interrupted. I hope you're both very happy together. We're not together. It didn't work out. It was a disaster, actually, and I realized. Lucas, stop. I looked at him directly. I genuinely hope you find happiness. But you won't find it by trying to rewrite our past or restart something that was never going to work. How can you say it wasn't going to work? We were good together. Were we? Because I remember feeling like I was constantly competing with a ghost. Like no matter what I did, I'd never be enough because I wasn't her. Lucas flinched. That's not fair. I never said. You didn't have to say it. I felt it every single day. I squeezed James's hand. But that's not your fault or mine. We wanted different things. You wanted Sophia. I wanted someone who wanted me. I started to walk away, But Lucas's next words stopped me. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Please, Emma, just give me another chance to prove. No. I turned back to face him. Lucas, I gave you 8 years. You don't get another chance to waste my time while you figure out what you really want. I know what I want now. I want you. I always did. I was just too stupid to. You didn't want me. You wanted a guarantee. Someone who would wait while you chased what you really wanted. Someone who would be there to catch you when it didn't work out. I shook my head. I'm not interested in being anyone's safety net. Lucas looked genuinely devastated. So that's it? You're just done? After everything we had? After everything we didn't have? I corrected. Goodbye, Lucas. As James and I walked away, I felt lighter than I'd felt in years. Are you okay? James asked. I'm perfect. That was closure I didn't even know I needed. 2 years after walking away from Lucas, James proposed. Not in a restaurant, not as a grand public gesture, but on a random Tuesday evening in our apartment while we were cooking dinner. Marry me, he said suddenly, setting down the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. I stared at him. What? Marry me. I don't have a ring yet, because I wanted to pick it out with you. And I know this isn't romantic, but Emma, I don't want to wait for some perfect moment. Every moment with you is the perfect moment. You're serious. Completely serious. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I want to fight with you about business decisions and make up by ordering too much takeout. I want everything with you forever. I felt tears on my face before I realized I was crying. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. We spent the next 6 months planning a wedding that felt authentically ours. Small ceremony, close friends and family only, focused on celebration rather than spectacle. The week before the wedding, I got a message from an unknown number. Emma, it's Lucas. I know I shouldn't contact you, but I heard about your wedding. I just wanted to say congratulations. And I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better than what I gave you. I hope he knows how lucky he is. I showed James the message that evening. Do you want to respond? He asked. No. That chapter is closed. I'm focused on the next one. James pulled me close. I do know how lucky I am, for the record. Every single day. The wedding day was perfect. Not because everything went according to plan. The flowers were wrong. It rained during photos. The caterer forgot the vegetarian option. It was perfect because I was marrying someone who loved me for exactly who I was. As I walked down the aisle, I saw James's face light up with pure joy. No reservations, no comparisons to someone else, no part of him wishing I was different. Just complete, uncomplicated happiness to be marrying me. During our vows, James's voice broke with emotion. Emma, before you, I didn't understand what it meant to be truly seen by another person. You challenge me, inspire me, frustrate me, and amaze me. You are my favorite person in the world, and I am so grateful that you chose me. I am so grateful that you chose me too, I said. And that you keep choosing me every single day. You make me braver, stronger, and more myself than I've ever been. I love you exactly as you are, and I can't wait to see who we become together. The reception was in full swing when I noticed a commotion near the entrance. Security was talking to someone, and as the crowd shifted, I saw him. Lucas, in a suit, looking desperate, trying to push past security. James noticed at the same time I did. I'll handle it. No. I will. I walked over to where Lucas was arguing with security. It's okay, I told them. I'll talk to him. I stepped outside with Lucas, away from the celebration, away from my wedding guests, away from the joy happening inside. What are you doing here? I asked, keeping my voice calm. I had to see you. Had to tell you before you made this mistake. Lucas, this isn't a mistake. This is my wedding day. To the wrong person. His voice cracked. Emma, I see it now. I see everything I lost. Everything I threw away. These past 2 years without you have been hell. I wake up every day and regret everything. Sophia wasn't. She was never what I thought. What we had. What you and I had. That was real. That was what mattered. What we had was me loving you while you loved someone else, I said quietly. That's not a foundation for a relationship, Lucas. That's a foundation for resentment. I know I hurt you. I know I was an idiot. But people make mistakes, Emma. People grow and change. I've changed. I know what I want now. You want what you can't have. That's not the same as wanting me. That's not true. It is true. Lucas, if I had stayed, if we'd gotten married, you would have spent our entire marriage comparing me to Sophia. And when you finally got the chance to be with her, you would have left me. Just like you're leaving her now that things didn't work out. How can you say that? You don't know. I know because I lived it. I gave you 8 years of my life and it was never enough. I was never enough. Not because I wasn't enough, but because you were always looking for something else. Lucas's face crumpled. I'm so sorry. Emma, I am so sorry. I didn't see what I had. I didn't appreciate you. I took you for granted and I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. For a moment, I felt something like pity for him. He was genuinely devastated, genuinely filled with regret. But regret wasn't the same as love, and recognizing your mistake wasn't the same as deserving another chance. I forgive you, I said. I genuinely do. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to give you another chance. It just means I'm not going to carry your mistakes with me anymore. Please, Emma, please, don't marry him. Just give me 6 months to prove that I've changed, that I can be the man you deserved. Lucas, I'm not interested in who you could be or who you think you should have been. I'm interested in my actual life, with someone who already sees my value, who already appreciates me, who already chooses me every single day. He can't love you the way I do. You're right. He doesn't love me the way you did. He loves me better. He loves me without reservations, without comparisons, without making me feel like I need to earn it. I stepped back toward the door. I hope you find someone who makes you feel the way James makes me feel. Someone who is your first choice, not your backup plan. But that person isn't me. It never was. I turned to go back inside, but Lucas called out one more time. Emma, wait. Just tell me one thing. Did you ever really love me? Or was I just practice for the real thing? I looked at him, at the man I'd spent 8 years trying to be enough for, and felt nothing but compassion for who we'd both been. I loved you completely, with everything I had. And it nearly destroyed me, because you couldn't love me back the same way. I paused. But yes, in a way, you were practice. You taught me what I wouldn't accept again. You taught me my own worth. So thank you for that, even if you didn't mean to teach it. I went back inside, back to my wedding, back to James and our friends and the life we were building together. James found me a moment later. Everything okay? Everything's perfect. I took his hand. Let's dance. As we moved to the dance floor, I caught sight of Lucas through the window, walking away, shoulders slumped, defeated. Part of me felt sad for him. He'd spent 8 years with someone amazing and hadn't realized it until it was too late. He'd chased a fantasy and lost his reality in the process. But mostly, I felt grateful. Grateful that I'd walked away when I did. Grateful that I'd given myself the chance to find someone who valued me from the beginning. Grateful that I'd chosen myself. Even when it was scary. Even when it felt risky. What are you thinking about? James asked, pulling me closer. About how lucky I am. About how different my life could have been if I'd made different choices. Any regrets? None. Not a single one. 3 years into our marriage, the business James and I had built together went public. We'd created something significant, something that mattered, something that bore both our names and both our visions. At the celebration dinner, James stood to make a toast. I want to thank my wife, my partner, and my favorite person in the world. Emma, you took a risk on me and my crazy ideas. You pushed me to be better, to think bigger, to never settle for good enough. This success is as much yours as it is mine. It's more hers than mine, I called out, making everyone laugh. I did all the hard work while he had the vision. She's not wrong, James agreed. But in all seriousness, Emma, thank you for being exactly who you are. For never pretending to be something you're not. For being the kind of partner who challenges me and supports me in equal measure. As we celebrated our success surrounded by friends and colleagues, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Lucas. I saw the news about the IPO. Congratulations. You deserve every success. I'm sorry I never saw it while I had the chance. I showed James the message. Do you want to respond? He asked. No. But I don't need to delete it either. It doesn't have power over me anymore. James kissed my forehead. I'm glad you're free of whatever that relationship was. Me too. 5 years after my wedding, I was at a coffee shop working when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Emma? Emmeline. I turned to find Sophia Chun standing there, looking nervous and uncertain. Sophia. Hi. I'm so sorry to bother you. I saw you and I wanted to say something. If you have a minute. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. Sure. Sophia sat down, fidgeting with her cup. I don't know if you know who I am. I know who you are. Right. Of course. She took a breath. I wanted to apologize. For my part in whatever happened between you and Lucas. I didn't. I wasn't trying to come between you. I genuinely thought we were just friends, that he'd moved on. When I found out later how he'd been talking about me, the way he'd been comparing you to me, she shook her head. I was horrified. It wasn't your fault, I said honestly. You didn't do anything wrong. I feel like I did though. Like I should have seen it, should have shut it down more firmly. Lucas was always, she paused. He was always trying to recreate something that never actually existed. Our relationship when we were young, it wasn't this perfect thing he built it up to be. It was messy and complicated, and we were both too immature to handle it well. He never saw it that way. I know. And when we finally did try to make it work after you two broke up, it was a disaster. Because we were both different people than we'd been, and the fantasy he'd built couldn't survive reality. Sophia looked at me directly. He told me about showing up at your wedding. About how you handled it with grace when you had every right to throw him out on his ass. I was done being angry at him. Anger requires energy I wanted to spend on better things. That's incredibly mature. I'm not sure I'd have been able to do the same. She paused. I hear you're doing amazing things. The company, the success, the life you've built. I'm genuinely happy for you. Thank you. And Sophia? You didn't owe me an apology, but I appreciate it anyway. I hope you found happiness too. I'm working on it. It's been a journey, learning to be okay with not being someone's fantasy. After Sophia left, I sat thinking about the strange interconnectedness of lives. In my previous timeline, I died never knowing who Sophia really was, never understanding that she'd been as much a victim of Lucas's projection as I had been. This time, I'd met her as equals, two women who'd both been affected by the same man's inability to see people clearly. That evening, I told James about the encounter. How do you feel about it? He asked. Lighter somehow. Like the last piece of that old story finally closed. Sophia wasn't the villain I'd imagined. She was just another person trying to live her life while someone else wrote fantasies onto her. Do you think Lucas ever figured out what he actually wanted? I hope so. For his sake and for whoever he might be with. But it's not my problem to solve anymore. James pulled me close. I'm glad you're here. In this life, with me. Building something real instead of being stuck in someone else's imagination. Me too. Every single day. 7 years after my wedding, I was at a gallery opening for one of my friends when I saw Lucas again. He looked better than he had at my wedding. Healthier, more grounded, like he'd finally found some peace. He was with a woman I didn't recognize, someone petite and quiet who looked at him with genuine affection. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw the moment he recognized me. But instead of coming over, instead of trying to talk, he just nodded. A simple acknowledgement of our shared past and our separate presents. I nodded back. Later, as I was leaving, I passed him near the exit. We stopped, neither quite sure what to say. You look happy, I said finally. I am. Happy. Finally. He gestured to where his girlfriend was looking at a painting. Her name is Maya. She's a teacher. We've been together for 2 years. That's wonderful. I'm genuinely glad for you. I see you're still with James. Still building that empire together. We are. It's been an amazing journey. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Emma, I need you to know something. I've been in therapy for 3 years, working through a lot of things: attachment issues, fear of commitment, the way I projected fantasies onto people instead of seeing them clearly. And I've come to understand how badly I treated you. Lucas, please let me finish. I need to say this. He took a breath. I spent 8 years with you and I never really saw you. I was so busy comparing you to a memory that I never appreciated the actual person standing in front of me. And when I lost you, when I saw what you went on to build without me, I finally understood what an incredible person you are. What I'd had and thrown away. I appreciate you saying that. I showed up at your wedding because I thought I could win you back. Like you were a prize I could reclaim. But the truth is, I never deserved you in the first place. And I'm so sorry it took me losing you to figure that out. I looked at him, at the genuine remorse in his face, and felt something release in my chest. This wasn't the Lucas I'd known. The one who'd blamed me for not being enough, who'd made me feel small and insufficient. This was someone who'd done the hard work of looking at himself honestly. Thank you for telling me that. And Lucas? I hope you're treating Maya better than you treated me. I hope you're seeing her clearly, appreciating her for who she actually is. I am. Every day. She's nothing like you or Sophia, and that's exactly why it works. I'm not trying to recreate anything or chase any fantasy. I'm just being present with who she actually is. That's all any of us can ask for. Maya approached then, smiling politely. Lucas introduced us, and I could see the slight nervousness in her eyes, the awareness of who I was in his history. It's nice to meet you, I said warmly. Lucas seems really happy. He is, Maya said, relaxing slightly. We both are. As I walked back to where James was waiting for me, I felt a profound sense of peace. The story of Lucas and me had finally, truly ended. Not with drama or anger, but with mutual recognition of what we'd been and what we'd become apart. Everything okay? James asked, taking my hand. Everything's perfect. Lucas found someone who makes him happy. Someone he can actually see clearly. Good for him. I'm glad he figured it out eventually. Me too. It means I don't have to carry any guilt about the choice I made. About walking away when I did. James stopped walking and turned me to face him. Emma, you never should have felt guilty about choosing yourself. About refusing to settle for someone who didn't value you. That was the bravest thing you could have done. I know that now, but at the time it felt selfish. Like I was giving up too easily. Knowing your worth isn't giving up. It's the opposite. He kissed me softly. And I'm grateful every single day that you knew your worth, because it led you to me. 10 years after walking away from Lucas, James and I were celebrating our 8th wedding anniversary when he handed me an envelope. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside was a deed to a property, a beautiful craftsman house in our dream neighborhood. You bought us a house? We bought us a house. Equal partners, remember? Your name is on that deed right next to mine. James smiled. I know we've been happy in the apartment, but I wanted to build something more permanent. Something that's truly ours. I felt tears starting. This is incredible. There's more. Look at the address. I looked down at the deed and saw it. 3142 Maple Street. The same street where I'd grown up, just 3 blocks from my childhood home. You remembered, I whispered. Of course I remembered. You told me once that you'd always dreamed of raising a family on this street, that it had always felt like home. So when this house came on the market, I couldn't pass it up. A family? I looked at him. Are you saying? I'm saying I think we're ready. If you are. No pressure, no timeline, just whenever feels right. I kissed him, tasting salt from my own tears. I'm ready. I'm so ready. 6 months later, we were moving into our new house when I found an old box of belongings from my previous apartment. Inside were photos from my early 20s, including several of Lucas and me. I stared at those photos, at the young woman I'd been, at the relationship I'd thought was my future. That Emma looked happy in the pictures, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. The way she leaned toward Lucas while he looked slightly away from the camera. Always reaching, never quite reaching far enough. James found me sitting on the floor surrounded by photos. Old memories? He asked gently. Old life. Sometimes it feels like it happened to someone else. In a way, it did. You're not that person anymore. No, I'm not. I gathered the photos and put them back in the box. But I'm glad she existed. Glad she was brave enough to walk away, even when it was terrifying. What are you going to do with them? Keep them. Not as a shrine to what was, but as a reminder of what I survived. What I chose instead. James pulled me to my feet. Come on. Let me show you what I set up in the office. He led me to the small room we'd designated as our home office. Inside, he'd hung several of my early design pieces. The experimental, risky work I'd done before I met Lucas. The work I'd abandoned during those 8 years because he'd always said it was too avant-garde, too uncommercial. I found these in storage, James said. I thought they deserved to be seen. They're brilliant, Emma. They're you at your most fearless. I stared at the pieces, at the bold colors and unconventional layouts. I'd forgotten how much I'd loved creating them. How free I'd felt before I started censoring myself to fit someone else's vision of who I should be. Thank you, I whispered. For seeing me. For always seeing me. That's the easy part, James said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. You're impossible not to see when you're being yourself. 1 year later, I was 7 months pregnant when I got a call from an unknown number. Emma? It's Maya. Lucas's girlfriend. Well, fiancée now. Maya. Congratulations on the engagement. Thank you. Listen, I hope this isn't weird, but I wanted to ask you something. Lucas told me about everything. About your relationship, about how it ended, about showing up at your wedding. He's been really honest about his past mistakes. I'm glad he's being open with you. He is. But here's the thing. He's terrified of repeating those patterns. Of making you feel the way he made you feel. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to meet with us. Both of us. So I can hear from you what warning signs to watch for. What I should be aware of. I was quiet for a moment, processing this unexpected request. Maya, I appreciate you reaching out, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask. My relationship with Lucas was a long time ago. He's done a lot of work since then. I know, but you're the person who lived through it. Who saw the patterns before he even recognized them himself. And I want to be smart about this. I love him, but I'm not going to be blind. There was something about her directness, her refusal to pretend the past didn't matter, that I respected deeply. Okay, I said. I'll meet with you. Both of you. A week later, we met at a quiet cafe. Lucas looked nervous, Maya looked determined, and I felt oddly calm about the whole situation. Thank you for doing this, Maya said after we'd ordered coffee. I know it's probably uncomfortable. It's okay. Actually, I think it's smart. The fact that you're asking questions instead of just hoping for the best says good things about both of you. Lucas spoke up. Emma, I want to be clear. I don't expect you to reassure Maya that I've changed or vouch for me. I just want you to be honest about what our relationship was like. The good and the bad. Okay. I thought about how to frame it. The truth is Lucas wasn't a villain. He wasn't abusive or cruel. But he was absent in a way that was incredibly painful. What do you mean by absent? Maya asked. Physically present but emotionally elsewhere. Always comparing what we had to some idealized version of what he thought he wanted. I'd accomplish something and instead of celebrating with me, he'd make a comment about how Sophia would have been proud. I'd suggest we try something new and he'd say it wasn't his thing but Sophia had always loved it. I looked at Lucas. You made me feel like I was an acceptable substitute for what you really wanted. Lucas's face had gone pale. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. You didn't realize because you weren't paying attention. You were so focused on this fantasy of what Sophia represented that you never bothered to see what was actually in front of you. Maya reached across the table and took Lucas's hand. Are you doing that with me? Am I a fantasy or am I real to you? You're real, Lucas said immediately. Maya, you're so real that it's almost overwhelming sometimes. I know your favorite coffee order and your irrational fear of birds, and the way you hum when you're concentrating. I know you because I pay attention. Because I want to know you, not some idea of you. Okay. Maya looked at me. What else? What warning signs should I watch for? Watch how he talks about your accomplishments. Does he celebrate them or find ways to diminish them? Watch how he responds when you set boundaries. Does he respect them or make you feel guilty for having needs? Watch whether he encourages your growth or subtly tries to keep you small and manageable. I do all of that wrong? Lucas asked, sounding devastated. You did all of that wrong with me, I corrected. I don't know what you're doing with Maya. That's between you two. Maya squeezed Lucas's hand. You don't do those things with me. You celebrate my wins. You encourage me to take risks. You respect my boundaries even when they're inconvenient for you. Then you're already doing better than we did, I said. Lucas, I think the fact that you're here, willing to have this conversation, willing to hear how you hurt someone in the past, that shows growth. But Maya's right to be asking these questions. She's being smart. After we parted ways, James picked me up and I told him about the conversation. That must have been intense, he said. It was. But it was also closure. Real closure, not the kind where someone crashes your wedding, but the kind where everyone's grown and healed, and can be honest about what was. Do you think they'll make it? I don't know. But I think they have a better shot than Lucas and I ever did, because Maya's not going into it blind. She's asking the hard questions up front. Smart woman. Very smart. I rested my hand on my pregnant belly. I hope our daughter is that smart. That she knows her worth and asks the hard questions and never settles for someone who makes her feel like a consolation prize. She will be, James said. Because she'll have you as an example. Our daughter Lily was born on a Tuesday in March, with her father's eyes and her mother's determination. Holding her for the first time, I thought about all the versions of my life that had led to this moment. In one timeline, I'd died at 31, never knowing what it felt like to be truly valued by a partner, never building a successful business, never holding my own child. In this timeline, I had everything because I'd been brave enough to walk away from what wasn't serving me, even when I didn't know what came next. She's perfect, James whispered, tears on his face as he looked at our daughter. She is. And she's going to know she's perfect exactly as she is, not as some idealized version of what someone else wants her to be. 3 months after Lily was born, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. Lucas and Maya were getting married. Are you going to go? James asked. I don't think so. It feels like their day should be about them, not about managing my presence and all the history that comes with it. But I did send a gift, a beautiful piece of art I'd commissioned from one of my artist friends, along with a note. Wishing you both genuine happiness. May you always see each other clearly and love what you see. Emma and James. A week after their wedding, Maya sent me a thank you note with a photo. She and Lucas looked genuinely happy, surrounded by friends and family, no shadows of the past visible in their smiles. Thank you for the beautiful art and for the even more beautiful message, she'd written. And thank you for being honest with us. It helped us start our marriage with eyes wide open. I hope Lily is thriving and that you and James are enjoying parenthood. With gratitude, Maya and Lucas. I put the photo on our fridge, next to pictures of our own wedding, our friends, our family. Not as a reminder of what could have been, but as a symbol of what growth looked like. Of people who'd hurt each other finding ways to heal and move forward separately. 5 years after Lily was born, we had a son, Ethan, named after James's grandfather. Our house was full of noise and chaos and the beautiful mess of family life. One evening, as I was putting Lily to bed, she asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. Mommy, did you always know Daddy was the one? What do you mean, sweetheart? In stories, the princess always knows right away when she meets the prince. Did you know right away with Daddy? I thought about how to answer honestly without burdening a 7-year-old with adult complexity. No, I didn't know right away. Actually, before I met Daddy, I was with someone else who I thought might be the one. What happened? I realized that he didn't see me clearly. He was looking for someone I wasn't, and I was trying so hard to be what he wanted that I forgot who I actually was. That sounds sad. It was sad, but it taught me something important. That the right person isn't someone who makes you change yourself. The right person is someone who helps you become more yourself. Like Daddy does. Exactly like Daddy does. He saw who I really was and he loved that person. He didn't want me to be different or better, or more like someone else. He just wanted me to be me. Lily thought about this. I want to marry someone like that someday. I hope you do, baby. And I hope you remember that it's okay to walk away from someone who doesn't see you clearly. That walking away isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. After Lily fell asleep, I found James in Ethan's room, reading him a story. I stood in the doorway and watched them. This little family we'd built, this life we'd created together. James looked up and caught me watching. He smiled, that same smile that had challenged me to be brave, to take risks, to be fully myself. I smiled back, and in that moment, I felt the weight of both timelines pressing against each other. The life I'd lived and lost, and the life I'd chosen and built. In the first life, I'd died believing I wasn't enough. That if I'd just tried harder, been better, been more like Sophia, Lucas would have loved me the way I deserved. In this life, I'd learned that I'd always been enough. The problem had never been my inadequacy, it had been Lucas's inability to see clearly, to be present, to value what he had. And most importantly, I'd learned that recognizing when something wasn't working and choosing to walk away wasn't failure. It was the bravest kind of success. 10 years after my wedding to James, 15 years after walking away from Lucas, I was at a conference giving a keynote speech about building authentic brands, when I saw Lucas in the audience. After the speech, he approached me during the networking session. "Emma, that was incredible. The way you talked about authenticity in business, it was powerful." "Thank you. I didn't expect to see you here." Maya and I run a nonprofit now. We work with at-risk youth, helping them develop life skills and find career paths. This conference had a track on purpose-driven organizations. That's wonderful. It sounds like meaningful work. It is. And Emma, I wanted to tell you something. Maya's pregnant. We're having a baby. Congratulations. That's amazing. It is. But it's also terrifying, because I keep thinking about the kind of father I want to be, about teaching our child to be present, to see people clearly, to not make the mistakes I made. He paused. Your speech today, about authenticity and showing up fully, it made me think about how I never showed up fully for you, how I was always half somewhere else, and how that must have felt. Lucas, you don't have to. I do though. Because I'm going to have a daughter or a son who's going to need me to be fully present. And I needed to tell you that I finally understand what I did wrong. Not just intellectually, but in my gut. I understand what it must have felt like to love someone who was always comparing you to a ghost. I looked at this man who'd once consumed so much of my life, who'd made me doubt my worth for 8 years, and felt nothing but compassion. I'm glad you understand it now. Not for my sake. I healed from that a long time ago. But for your child's sake. Because kids need parents who see them clearly, who don't project their own unfulfilled dreams onto them. Maya helps with that. She calls me out when I start living in my head instead of being present. She's what I needed. Someone who demands my full attention and won't accept less. Then I'm genuinely happy for both of you. As Lucas walked away, James appeared at my side. Was that who I think it was? It was. He came to tell me Maya's pregnant, and that my speech made him think about being present. How do you feel about that? Grateful that he figured it out. Glad that his child won't grow up with a father who's always somewhere else mentally. And mostly just neutral. He's not part of my emotional landscape anymore. He's just a person I used to know who's living his own life now. That's growth. That's freedom, I corrected. The freedom that comes from knowing your worth and building a life that reflects it. That night, back in our hotel room, James and I lay in bed talking about the day. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd stayed with him? James asked. If you'd tried to make it work? I don't have to wonder. I know exactly what would have happened. I'd have spent my entire life being second choice, making myself smaller and smaller to fit into whatever space he had left over after his fantasy of Sophia. I'd have built a life around his dreams instead of my own. And I'd have died inside, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of the person I actually was. That's dark. That's reality. That's what happens when you love someone more than you love yourself. I rolled over to face him. But I didn't stay. I walked away. And that choice, that one moment of choosing myself over staying comfortable, it led to everything. To you, to our business, to our kids, to this life that's bigger and better than anything I could have imagined. I'm glad you chose yourself. So am I. Every single day. 15 years after walking away from Lucas, 20 years after our relationship began in the first timeline, I was invited to speak at my college alma mater about success and entrepreneurship. Standing in front of those young students, I thought about the person I'd been at their age. Uncertain, eager to please, willing to mold myself into whatever shape someone else needed. The most important business decision I ever made, I told them, had nothing to do with business. It was choosing to walk away from a relationship that was making me smaller. Choosing to believe I deserved more than being someone's backup plan. A young woman raised her hand. How did you know it was the right decision? What if you'd walked away from something that could have worked? I knew because I felt myself disappearing. Because I was constantly trying to be enough for someone who would never think I was enough, not because of anything I did or didn't do, but because he was in love with an idea of someone else. I paused. And here's the thing. Walking away from something that's not working isn't giving up. It's making space for something that will work. After the talk, several students came up to thank me. One young woman in particular stayed until everyone else had left. "Ms. Park," she said nervously, "I just wanted to say, I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years, and he constantly talks about his ex. About how perfect she was, how understanding. And hearing you talk today made me realize I've been doing exactly what you described. Making myself smaller, trying to be more like her. And I don't think I can do it anymore." I looked at this young woman, at the pain and determination in her face, and saw my younger self. "Then don't," I said gently. "Don't spend another day trying to be someone else's version of perfect. Be your own version of whole." "But what if I'm making a mistake? What if I leave and regret it? What if you stay and regret all the years you spent trying to be enough for someone who couldn't see your worth?" I pulled out my business card. "If you need support, resources, someone to talk to, reach out. You're not alone in this." She took the card with trembling hands. "Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to share your story." As I drove home that evening, I thought about all the versions of that conversation I'd had over the years. All the women who'd reached out after hearing my story, who'd recognized their own struggles in my experience. That was the gift of my second chance. Not just that I'd saved myself, but that in doing so, I'd created a roadmap for others to save themselves too. When I got home, the house was chaos. Lily and Ethan were fighting over the TV remote. James was attempting to cook dinner while fielding work calls. And our dog was barking at absolutely nothing. It was messy and loud and nothing like the controlled, careful life I tried to maintain with Lucas, where everything had to be perfect because perfect was the only way to prove I was worth keeping. "Mom," Lily shouted. "Tell Ethan it's my turn to pick the show." "Ethan, give your sister the remote," I called out, dropping my bags by the door. "But she picked last time." "Then you'll pick next time. Family compromise, remember?" James looked up from the stove and smiled. "How was the talk?" "Good. Met a young woman who needed to hear she could walk away." "Did you tell her about us?" "I told her about me. About learning that walking away from wrong is how you make space for right." That night, after the kids were in bed and the house was finally quiet, James and I sat on our back porch watching the stars. "Do you ever think about the other timeline?" he asked. "The one where you didn't walk away?" I'd never told James about being reborn, about actually living through that other timeline. But in moments like this, I thought about what that Emma had missed. The life she'd never gotten to build because she'd stayed too long with someone who couldn't love her properly. "Sometimes," I said, but only as a reminder of how different things could have been. How grateful I am for the choices I made. Even the painful ones. Especially the painful ones. Walking away from Lucas hurt like hell at the time. It felt like admitting defeat, like I'd failed at something I should have been able to fix. But that pain was the price of admission to this life. To you, to our family, to being someone I'm actually proud of. James pulled me closer. "You know what I love about you? You're not afraid to admit when something isn't working. You don't cling to sunk costs or stay in situations that drain you just because you've already invested time. I learned that the hard way. But you learned it. Some people never do. As we sat there in the quiet, I thought about Lucas and Maya, about their baby who was probably born by now. I thought about that young woman at the college, about whether she'd find the courage to choose herself. I thought about all the versions of this story that were playing out across the world. People staying in relationships that diminished them, people walking away and finding themselves, people learning that love without respect is just emotional servitude. And I thought about my daughter Lily, about the lessons I wanted to teach her. Not through lectures or warnings, but through example. I wanted her to see a mother who knew her worth. A father who respected and valued her mother as an equal partner. A relationship built on mutual support and genuine appreciation. Not on one person constantly trying to be enough for someone who would never think they were. I wanted her to know, bone deep, that she never had to make herself smaller to make someone else comfortable. That the right person would celebrate her bigness, encourage her growth, love her expansiveness. 20 years after walking away from Lucas, I was celebrating my 48th birthday when an unexpected gift arrived. It was a leather-bound journal with a note. Emma, I hope this isn't overstepping, but I wanted to send this to you. I've been working with my therapist on a project, writing letters to people I've hurt, taking full accountability for my actions without expecting forgiveness or response. This journal contains the letter I wrote to you, along with reflections on what I learned from our relationship and how it changed me. You never have to read it if you don't want to. But if you do, I hope it brings you some measure of closure. Thank you for everything you taught me, even if I didn't appreciate the lessons at the time. Lucas. I showed James the journal that evening. Are you going to read it? He asked. I don't know. Part of me is curious. Part of me thinks that chapter is so closed it doesn't need any more words. What does your gut say? I thought about it. My gut says read it. Not because I need it, but because he might need me to. Because sometimes closure is a gift we give to others, not something we need for ourselves. I read the journal over the next few days. Lucas's words were raw and honest, taking full responsibility for his behavior without making excuses. He detailed the ways he'd made me feel inadequate, the comparisons he'd drawn to Sophia, the emotional absence that had characterized our entire relationship. But more than that, he wrote about how losing me had been the catalyst for real change. How seeing me succeed, seeing me build a life that reflected my actual values and abilities, had forced him to confront what he'd lost through his own blindness. You were never the problem, he'd written. You were extraordinary, and I was too busy chasing a fantasy to see the reality of what I had. By the time I understood that, you'd already moved on to someone who could see you clearly. And while it hurt, it was exactly what I deserved. Thank you for not waiting for me to figure it out. Thank you for valuing yourself enough to leave. It taught me what I should have already known. That people are not placeholders or consolation prizes. They are complete universes deserving of our full attention and genuine appreciation. After I finished reading, I wrote back, just a short note. Lucas, thank you for your honesty and accountability. I'm glad our relationship, painful as it was, became a catalyst for your growth. I wish you, Maya, and your family continued happiness and presence with each other. No response needed. Just wanted you to know I received your words and appreciated them. Emma. I sent the note, and felt something final click into place. Not closure. I'd had that for years. But completion. The story had been told fully, all sides heard, all lessons learned. How do you feel? James asked after I'd mailed the note. Like I can finally put that whole chapter in a box labeled finished, and move it to the back of the closet. Not throwing it away because it shaped me, but not keeping it on display either because it's done. 25 years after walking away from Lucas, 30 years after our relationship began in the first timeline, I was at my daughter Lily's college graduation when I saw Maya across the quad. We hugged like old friends, which in a strange way we'd become. Emma. I didn't know Lily was graduating today. She is. With honors in environmental science. We're so proud. That's wonderful. Our daughter Kate is graduating too, sociology major. She wants to work in community development. We stood together watching our daughters receive their diplomas. These young women who'd grown up in the shadow of a story they didn't fully know, who'd benefited from the lessons their parents had learned through pain and growth. "They're going to be amazing," Maya said. "Both of them. They're so confident, so clear about what they want." They are. And they won't make the mistakes we made because they've seen what healthy relationships look like. Maya looked at me. "Can I tell you something? Lucas talks about you sometimes. About how walking away from him was the best thing you ever did. Not just for yourself but for him too. He says if you'd stayed, he never would have been forced to do the real work of becoming someone capable of genuine partnership. I'm glad he sees it that way now." "He does. And Emma, I'm glad too. Glad you walked away. Glad you valued yourself enough to demand better. Because if you hadn't, I wouldn't have met the version of Lucas who was ready to actually show up for someone." She squeezed my hand. "Thank you for being strong enough to leave. It changed all of our lives for the better." After the ceremony, as James and I celebrated with Lily and her friends, I thought about the web of consequences that stemmed from that one choice. Walking away from Lucas hadn't just saved me. It had set off a chain reaction that had improved multiple lives. Lucas had been forced to grow and become someone capable of real love. Maya had gotten a partner who was present and appreciative. Their children had grown up with a father who saw them clearly. And I had built a life that was authentically mine, with a partner who valued me from the beginning. "What are you thinking about?" Lily asked, catching me staring into space. "About how one brave choice can change everything. About how choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the most generous thing you can do, because it forces everyone to grow into their best selves." "Is this about the ex-boyfriend story?" Lily asked with a knowing smile. "The one you won't give me details about but that made you who you are?" "That's the one." "Will you ever tell me the whole story?" "Someday, when you need to hear it. When you're facing a choice between staying in something comfortable but wrong, or leaving for something unknown but true. Then I'll tell you everything." Deal. 30 years after walking away from Lucas, I was 63 years old and attending Lucas and Maya's 30th wedding anniversary party. It felt surreal to be celebrating their 3 decades together, knowing that in another timeline, I'd died before ever seeing Lucas commit to anyone. The party was beautiful, casual and warm, filled with friends and family, and the easy intimacy of people who genuinely knew and loved each other. Lucas gave a speech that brought me to tears. 30 years ago, I married the love of my life. But I almost didn't get here, because I was too blind to see love when it was right in front of me. I spent years chasing a fantasy and hurting real people in the process. He looked directly at me. "Emma, I know we've talked about this over the years, but I want to say it publicly. Thank you for having the strength to walk away from me when I didn't deserve you. Thank you for teaching me, through your absence, what presence actually means. You didn't just save yourself, you saved me too, by refusing to enable my worst patterns." He turned to Maya. "And thank you for demanding my full attention from day one. For not accepting less than my complete presence. For helping me become someone capable of actually showing up." Later, as the party was winding down, Lucas and I found ourselves alone on the back patio. "I meant what I said in there," he told me. "About you saving me. You saved yourself, Lucas. I just stopped preventing you from having to." "Same thing in a way." He paused. "Emma, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd stayed? If you'd tried to make it work?" I thought about the answer carefully. I don't have to wonder. I know exactly what would have happened, because I lived it once before. Lucas looked confused. "What do you mean?" I'd never told anyone about being reborn, about living through that first timeline. But something about this moment, 30 years after walking away, standing at Lucas's anniversary party to someone else, made me want to be completely honest. I mean, I stayed once. In another life, another version of this story. I gave you 8 years of trying to be enough. And it destroyed me, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. Until I died without ever understanding that the problem wasn't me, it was us. We were fundamentally incompatible, and no amount of my trying harder could fix that. You really believe that? That some version of you lived through that? I know it. I remember it. I remember dying at 31, watching you propose to Sophia, realizing I'd wasted the best years of my life on someone who could never love me the way I deserved. I looked at him, and then I got a second chance. A chance to choose differently, to walk away before you could take everything from me. Lucas was quiet for a long time. I don't know if I believe in past lives or alternate timelines or whatever this is, but I believe that you're telling me your truth. And if that version of us existed, if I really did waste 8 years of your life, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be grateful that we both got the version where I was brave enough to leave, where you were forced to grow, where we both ended up with partners who actually see us. I smiled. This timeline is better for everyone. It is. But Emma, I need you to know. In any timeline, in any version of this story, you were always enough. Always. The problem was never you. I know that now. It took me a while, but I know. As I drove home with James that night, he asked me about my conversation with Lucas. I told him the truth, I said. About the other timeline. About dying and getting a second chance. How did he react? He listened. He apologized. He told me I was always enough. I leaned my head against the window. It was closure I didn't even know I still needed. Are you glad you went to the party? I am. It felt like witnessing the proof that I made the right choice. That walking away wasn't giving up. It was giving everyone the chance to find what they actually needed. 35 years after walking away from Lucas, I was 68 years old when I got a call from Maya. Emma, I don't know if you've heard, but Lucas had a heart attack. He's okay, stable, but it was scary. And he's been asking for you. Saying there's something he needs to tell you. I visited Lucas in the hospital the next day. He looked older, frilier, with monitors beeping softly around his bed. Emma, he said when he saw me. Thank you for coming. Of course. Maya said you wanted to talk? I did. Because facing mortality makes you want to clear the ledger, I guess. He took a breath. I've been thinking about what you said at my anniversary party. About living through another timeline where we stayed together, and you died young. And I wanted to tell you, I believe you. You do. I do. Because sometimes late at night, I have these flashes of memory that don't fit my actual life. Memories of you and me, years older, arguing about Sophia, about money, about a trip to Hawaii. And in these memories, you look so tired, so defeated, like you've been beaten down by life. Those are real, I whispered. That's what happened in the other timeline. Then I'm so grateful you got out, that you chose yourself over staying with someone who was killing your spirit. He reached for my hand. Emma, in whatever cosmic accounting system exists, I owe you everything. Because you walked away, I had to become someone better. Someone worthy of the love Maya gives me. Someone present enough to be a good father to our kids. You don't owe me anything, Lucas. You did the work yourself. But I never would have started if you hadn't forced me to. If you'd stayed, we'd both be miserable. Or dead, apparently. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being present with the weight of all these years, all these choices, all these different versions of lives that could have been. Do you regret it? Lucas asked finally. Walking away? Losing those years we could have had together? Not for a single second. Those weren't years we could have had. They were years I would have lost. Walking away from you was the best decision I ever made, because it led to everything that actually matters in my life. Lucas smiled, tears in his eyes. Good. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Why? Because I've been carrying guilt for years about how I treated you. About whether I ruined your life by being such an idiot. But if walking away from me led to everything good in your life, then maybe I didn't ruin anything. Maybe I was just the wrong path you had to try before finding the right one. That's exactly what you were. And Lucas, I hope you know, I forgive you. Completely. For everything. Not because you've earned it through growth or apologies, but because I don't want to carry any resentment anymore. You were young, stupid, and emotionally unavailable. So was I in my own way. We were wrong for each other, and that's okay. Thank you, he whispered. That means more than you know. As I left the hospital, I felt lighter than I'd felt in years. The last threads of that old story had finally been cut. leaving me free to fully inhabit this life I'd built. 40 years after walking away from Lucas, I was 73 years old when he died peacefully in his sleep. Maya called to tell me, her voice steady despite her grief. He asked me to give you something, she said. A letter he wrote years ago, to be opened after his death. The letter arrived 2 days later. Inside was a single page in Lucas's handwriting. Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I want my last words to you to be thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to walk away when I wasn't brave enough to let you go. Thank you for teaching me, through your absence,